He was just trying to make it home that night, but one gunshot changed everything. In a small American town, a white policeman pulled the trigger, and the nation stopped breathing. This is the story of trust, broken by fear, and justice, reborn from pain. It was a calm morning in Riverside, a small American town where everyone knew each other, and peace felt like an old friend. James Wilder, a tall and respected black man with a heart full of kindness, started his day like any other. He helped an old woman into the church, fixed a child's bicycle, and laughed with his wife Lucia and their teenage son Malik. James was known for his goodness. A family man, a church volunteer, the kind of person who made everyone feel safe. On the other side of town, Officer Jack Reed, a white policeman with cold blue eyes and a troubled conscience, prepared for his night shift. Reed wasn't evil, but something inside him was broken. A mix of fear, pride, and the shadow of old prejudice. That evening, James stopped at a gas station after work, humming a soft gospel tune as he filled his truck. It was peaceful, ordinary, until the 911 call came through. A frightened clerk reported a suspicious black man with a gun. Reed, nearby in his patrol car, responded instantly, his heart pounding, his mind clouded by tension and bias. Within minutes, the sound of screeching tires broke the silence. Blue and red lights flashed against James's calm face as he turned, startled by the shouting voice of the officer. "Hands where I can see them," Reed yelled, his gun drawn, his voice trembling with both authority and fear. "Sir," James said, confused, raising his hands slowly. "You got the wrong man." Reed's breathing grew heavier. His hands shook. A trash can fell nearby with a loud crash, and in that split second of panic, Reed fired. One shot, then another. The quiet town echoed with the sound of death. James staggered back, eyes wide with disbelief, whispering only 2 words before he fell to the ground. "My son!" And then silence. Reed froze, his gun still pointed at the lifeless man who had only ever done good. When the store clerk ran out screaming, "That's James Wilder!" He wasn't armed. Reed's face drained of color. He dropped to his knees beside the body, whispering, "No, oh God, no," as the weight of what he'd done crushed him. That night, Lucia waited at home with dinner ready, smiling as Malik joked that his father was probably talking to everyone again. But when the knock came on the door and she saw the uniformed officer's eyes filled with pity, her world shattered. Her scream tore through the night, a sound of pain that would haunt the whole town. By the next morning, news cameras surrounded the church steps. Candles flickered beneath signs that read, "Justice for James Wilder," and "Stop killing us." The community that once trusted its protectors now stood in fear and fury. A single bullet had broken more than a life, it had broken faith itself. The morning after James Wilder's death, Riverside woke up to a storm it had never known before. The peaceful streets that once echoed with children's laughter now roared with chants of anger, pain, and injustice. "Say his name," the crowd shouted. "James Wilder." The church bells tolled like cries of sorrow as neighbors placed flowers, candles, and handwritten notes outside the gas station where James was killed. Lucia stood among them, her eyes hollow but fierce. She held Malik's hand tightly, whispering, "They took your father, but they won't take his truth." Malik, his face streaked with tears, looked up at her with a trembling voice. "Mom, will they punish him?" She didn't answer because deep down, she already knew how this world worked. Across town, Officer Jack Reed sat alone in his small apartment, staring at his hands. The same hands that had held a gun. The same hands now stained with guilt. His mind replayed the moment over and over. The flash of light, the bang, James's eyes, that whisper, "My son." Reed's wife had left him months ago, and now, even his reflection felt like a stranger. His phone rang, it was the police chief. "You did what you had to do, Reed," the voice said coldly. "We'll handle the press." But Reed wasn't sure he believed it anymore. By noon, news stations flooded the town. Reporters swarmed the police station, demanding answers. A video surfaced from a security camera, grainy but clear enough to show the truth. James Wilder was unarmed, calm, and compliant before Reed shot him. The footage hit the internet like a wildfire. Protesters filled the streets, their voices merging into one, a roar of heartbreak and rage. "No justice, no peace," echoed across the night. Police stood in riot gear, shields raised, as people demanded the arrest of Officer Jack Reed. Inside their home, Lucia watched the footage over and over, her hands shaking as she pressed her husband's smiling photo to her chest. "They have to see now," she whispered, tears falling on the frame. Malik sat silently beside her, eyes burning with anger. "He didn't deserve this, Mom. Dad never hurt anyone." Lucia looked at her son, so young, yet already forced to understand the cruel truth of the world. "Your father believed in peace," she said softly, "but sometimes peace has to fight." That night, the town exploded. Protesters marched toward the courthouse, chanting James's name. Some carried candles. Others carried signs that read, "Black Lives Matter" and "Justice for James." Police cars lined the street, sirens wailing. Someone threw a bottle, then someone screamed, and chaos erupted. Smoke filled the air as officers fired tear gas. People ran in every direction, coughing, crying, choking on both gas and grief. Meanwhile, in the middle of the chaos, Malik stood on the hood of a car, holding his father's photo high above his head. "My father was a good man," he shouted, his voice cracking. "He helped everyone. He didn't deserve to die like an animal." The crowd cheered, then chanted louder, "Justice for James!" A journalist caught the moment on live TV. Within hours, the image of Malik holding that photo became the symbol of the movement. The next morning, the mayor announced that Officer Jack Reed had been placed on administrative leave pending investigation. That single phrase lit another fire in the community. "Administrative leave?" Lucia repeated bitterly, watching the TV. "He murdered my husband, and they give him a vacation?" Her lawyer, a young black woman named Alicia Grant, touched her hand gently. "We're taking this to court, Lucia. I promise you he will face justice." Across town, Reed sat in the interrogation room, staring at the table. His lawyer whispered instructions, but Reed couldn't hear them. All he could hear was James's voice, calm, kind, and echoing in his mind. "You got the wrong man." He tried to justify it, to tell himself it was a mistake. But mistakes didn't bleed, didn't cry, didn't leave children fatherless. Days turned into weeks. The story of James Wilder spread across the nation. Reporters from major networks filled Riverside. Some called James a hero. Others called Reed a man under pressure. The nation divided, but one truth remained. A good man was gone. Lucia attended rallies, spoke at vigils, and faced cameras with a strength that inspired millions. "I'm not just fighting for my husband," she said to a crowd one night. "I'm fighting so no other mother has to bury her son for the color of his skin." The audience erupted in applause, tears glistening in their eyes. Behind the scenes, the police department tried to protect Reed. They released edited footage, falsified reports, and blamed a misunderstanding. But Alicia, the lawyer, wasn't letting them get away with it. She gathered evidence, tracked down witnesses, and finally secured the full unedited video that showed Reed firing without reason. It was time for court. The courtroom was packed. Reporters filled every corner. Lucia sat in the front row holding Malik's hand. Reed entered in handcuffs, his face pale and expressionless. The world watched as the trial began. A mother seeking justice for her husband, and a man facing the truth of his own actions. And thus began the battle between justice and power, truth and lies, guilt and forgiveness. The courthouse stood like a silent giant under a cloudy sky. Crowds had gathered outside since dawn, holding banners, praying, chanting for justice. Cameras flashed. Reporters whispered into microphones. The whole nation watched. Inside, tension filled the air so thick you could almost feel it pressing on your chest. Lucia sat in the front row, her eyes swollen from sleepless nights but burning with quiet strength. Beside her, Malik clutched his father's old wristwatch, the only thing they got back from the police after the shooting. On the other side of the room sat Officer Jack Reed, pale, trembling, his uniform replaced by a prison jumpsuit. For the first time, his badge, the thing he once wore with pride, was gone. The judge entered, and the trial began. Alicia Grant, the family's lawyer, stood tall, her voice calm but sharp as steel. She began showing the full video of the shooting. The room fell into silence except for the sound of that night replaying, the siren, the shouts, the gunshots. Lucia buried her face in her hands. Malik turned away, tears streaming down his cheeks. Even some of the jurors gasped. When the screen went black, Alicia's voice echoed through the room. Ladies and gentlemen, that man was unarmed. He was calm. He was cooperative. But to Officer Reed, his skin was his crime. Reed's lawyer tried to argue back. He spoke of pressure, fear, confusion. He said Reed had a split second to decide. But when Alicia cross-examined Reed, his mask began to crack. "Mr. Reed," she asked, her eyes locked on his. "When you aimed your gun at James Wilder, what did you see?" Reed hesitated. "I saw a suspect," he murmured. "A threat." Alicia took a step forward. "You saw a man who was standing still, hands raised, telling you you had the wrong person. Why did you pull the trigger?" Reed's lips trembled. I thought," his voice broke. "I thought he was reaching for something." "He wasn't," Alicia said coldly. "He was reaching for his truck keys, because he was going home." The courtroom went silent. Reed looked down, his hands shaking uncontrollably. Then came the emotional moment everyone would remember. Lucia was called to the stand. The entire room turned to her. She took a deep breath and walked slowly forward, every step echoing like thunder. "My husband," she began, her voice trembling but strong, "was the best man I ever knew. He taught our son to be kind, to be patient, to believe in people, even when they didn't believe in him. He believed that the law would protect him. He believed that men in uniform stood for justice. And that belief killed him." Her words pierced the silence. Malik cried quietly in his seat. Even some officers in the courtroom bowed their heads. When the judge announced a short recess, the crowd outside erupted into chants again. "Justice for James! Justice for James!" News networks broadcasted the trial live. Millions across America watched Lucia's testimony replayed again and again. People cried in their living rooms. Hashtags flooded social media. It wasn't just a case anymore, it was a movement. As the final session began, Reed asked to speak. The judge allowed it. He stood slowly, eyes red, voice shaking. "I killed a man," he said, his words heavy with pain. "And I can't take that back. I told myself it was fear, that it was instinct. But it was me. I saw a black man and I didn't see a human being. I saw what I was trained to fear. I was wrong." Gasps filled the room. Lucia stared at him, frozen. "To his wife and son," Reed continued, "I am sorry. I wish I could trade places with him. I took away a good man and I destroyed a family. I don't deserve forgiveness. I only deserve the truth." His voice cracked as tears rolled down his face. The judge turned to the jury. After hours of deliberation, they returned with their decision. The courtroom went silent. "We, the jury, find the defendant, Jack Reed." The pause felt endless. "Guilty of second-degree murder." The words hit the room like a wave. Lucia closed her eyes and wept, clutching Malik's hand. The crowd outside screamed in triumph. Reporters ran to deliver the news. Justice, for once, had been served. But even as Reed was led away in handcuffs, Lucia didn't celebrate. She simply looked up at the ceiling, whispering, "You can rest now, James." Malik hugged her tightly, crying into her shoulder. "He got justice, Mom," he said. "Yeah," she whispered back. "But justice doesn't bring him home." Weeks later, the town of Riverside slowly began to heal. The gas station was replaced with a memorial garden, filled with flowers, candles, and photos of James Wilder. A bronze plaque read, "In memory of a man who believed in peace, and whose life reminded the world why justice must never sleep." Lucia often visited, sitting quietly as the wind brushed her hair. Malik joined a youth group that fought for equality and police reform. And across America, James Wilder's name became a symbol, not just of loss, but of awakening. In his prison cell, Jack Reed sat alone, watching the sunset through the bars. He held a Bible in his hands, whispering the same words James once said, "I'm just trying to make it home every night." For the first time, he finally understood what that meant. Fade out. Narrator, Theo. When trust was broken, truth rose from the ashes. One man's death opened a nation's eyes and proved that even in darkness, justice can still find its light.